if they're comfortable, if you felt protected by your earthly father. And that's a beautiful sight to see that there are some hands lifted. But the reality to all of you, what you can't see, is that there were 3 hands lifted in this room. As we know, there's a lot of pain and a lot of hurt that's existing in the world today that people are carrying with them, and they just don't know what to do with it. And that's why us activators like to collaborate together. We like to show up in strength and courage, knowing that we're not alone in these experiences. We're experiencing all of these things together. But when you're going through it, it's really hard not to feel alone. So I challenge you today to get a notebook, take your phone out, be ready to take some notes, because we have some powerful speakers who are, again, courageously showing up today to share a piece of their truth. And our series this year is Pieces of Power. And what that is for us is a big jigsaw puzzle. And we're all a bunch of the little pieces that make the big picture. You know, our first speaker, she's from Unity Southeast in Kansas City, Missouri. She's a reverend there, and I have to say, I just have to give kudos out to Unity because they are the main reason, or one of the big reasons, why Activate Your Power Now is even a thing. Before we even knew to believe in ourselves, they saw something in us. They believed in us. And more than that, they supported us. Not just as leaders of the church, but their congregation embraced us and made us feel welcome. And it was there through Unity last year when we hosted the 12 Power Series that we really got, I know I got a deeper understanding of what the power of power truly is. So Pieces of Power, again, it's going to mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But what we learned last year, and check out the recording, it's on YouTube, of Pieces of Power, is power is a very beautiful thing, right? When it's used right, when it's used divinely. So I would love to introduce our first speaker, Reverend Elisa. She's going to be kicking us off today. And I do want to mention that we will be collaborating with Unity Southeast next month, July 31st, to host a family event focused on bringing families together and really pouring into the children. So please reach out if you have any questions or want to be a part of this. We would love to talk to you about it. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce Reverend Elisa.
Hello. One of the things that I'd like to say about next month's event is it's really going to be more experiential and in nature. So you want to be there. I don't even know for sure we'll be able to record it because we're going to be hands-on, interacting, being present with one another. So as I started thinking about this topic, because of course I'm not a minister, I think I kind of prepared things last minute. And as I was looking about honoring my father and peace of protections, even though I've been talking about it all month, I was like, what does this mean to me? And I was thinking about the animal kingdom. So there's geese. And I think about geese, and it's springtime, and they have their goslings. And as I watch them move from the pond as I'm taking my morning walks, the father geese will jump up and protect the mama geese and the goslings. He won't let anybody get close to them. That is a sense of protection. I also think about a lion's pride. A male lion doesn't have a lot to do with the kids, but he stands around the perimeter and he protects the family, the pride. As long as he's around that pride, the lionesses and the cubs know that they are protected. So even though I was one of those people that raised my hand when Izzy asked Do we feel protected as by our earthly father? I did feel protected by the man that showed up in my life when I was 5 years old. My stepfather he is my daddy. And in fact, even on cards when you're looking for him and they say Father's Day or anything, Father never did it. I was crossing out and I was putting daddy. Today, he is still my daddy. That is the man who has raised me, has been by my side, who, even though he wasn't always actively involved in what I was doing, I knew that I could depend on him. I knew that if I needed something, he had the wisdom to share with me. In fact, I remember being a teenager and we're sitting there on the sidewalk and I'm talking about, what do you feel like God is? And he was one of the people that really connected me when we talked about God as energy. God being, we know that God is, there's this allness of God, this all-abiding ever-presence, but God is energy. Energy that has no bounds, that cannot be limited. It's infinite, and it goes in masterful, wonderful directions. And so as a minister, I wanted to think about, I usually say, and I've said it before, we are spiritual beings. And as spiritual beings, we are having a human experience. So there is this spiritual part of honoring thy Father and that piece of protection. In that space, I know God is all. Spirit is all. I know I am safe. I know I'm protected. Even beyond all the outer appearances, beyond any outcome, even when it sucks, God's got this. And then there's the human expression. And when I think about the human expression, I think about my biological father. This is the man that left when, well, actually my mom did a great thing. She left him when she was pregnant with me, but he came around a little bit when I was an infant and a toddler, and once when I was in middle school. But this is the man that I didn't really have much to do with. As a teenager, I went to go see him one time about when I was 19, and I was sadly disappointed. And I understood why my mom had protected me from keeping him at arm's length and not allowing me to have that intimate relationship with him. But as an adult, I'm a Taurus. I'm an Enneagram 2. And so being those things, I wanted to connect. I felt a sense of loyalty. In fact, my last name is Sabogal. I'm a Colombiana. I wanted to know more about my heritage, who I am. And of course, sometimes, especially as young people, we connect to what's not in front of us because we want to know more about who we are, because what in front of us is, of course, not enough, right? And so I would reach out to him every few months and just kind of just a few minute conversation. And then, there was a period in my children's lives where we got kind of close for a moment and we would talk. And I thought, oh, there's going to be something more of this. He was never a father to me. I called him by his first name, but he could be a grandfather to my children. Couldn't be Papa because my daddy, well, he's Papa, but he could be a grandfather. He could be present for my children. And then he went through a period of houselessness. He went through a period, substance abuse with alcohol, and it's like he wrote us off. We didn't exist anymore. And I said, the one thing that you could do is be consistent. The one thing that you can do is just simply show up. And he failed. And I went down there with my kids, and this is when I had lost a pregnancy, and he had an opportunity to be completely present with me because it happened. Not going to get into all the details of that, but I ended up in the hospital in Louisiana, away from my family, away from my friends, with my kids and him. And he didn't even want to come to the hospital because he couldn't handle it. There was an opportunity to show up, right? So this is the type of man we're dealing with. Last year, I got a phone call. And I didn't even know how this phone call would affect me in such a deep way. He was in the hospital, and he could no longer communicate for himself. I am the only next to kin. So they're telling me I have to make a decision. I have to decide what's next for someone I barely know. What is the most kind and humane thing to do? So I'm making these decisions for his palliative care, his hospice care, trying to find him a placement to get him out of the hospital. And, you know, and I'm thinking, I got to get down there. I need to see him at least one more time before he passes. But, you know, here I'm doing my own inner work. I'm at the Parliament for World Religions. I don't want to leave this. You know, I'm immersing myself into the experience of all that is God. Why is this dropping in my lap now? So I get through that week. I get home. I'm like, okay. Then I got work and everything kind of floods me. I'm like, no, I need to get down there. So my son and I, we leave in the afternoon about 5 o'clock, and we're driving into Louisiana. We decide, oh, we're not even gonna go to a hotel. We're gonna sleep in the car in a gas station or one of those truck stop things on our way to Louisiana. I pull into the outskirts of Louisiana. I'm 20 minutes from the hospital, and I get a phone call. He passed. And I'm sitting there thinking, why did I wait? And then why does it matter? And my son, he just, Mom, it's okay. He knew you were here. He knew you were here. He was hanging on until you got here, because 3 weeks in the hospital. I was like, yes. So I get to the hospital, and this is where I'm going to talk about energy. This doesn't negate the fact that this man abandoned me as a child. It doesn't negate the fact that he is clinically a sociopath, and I mean that literally. That he was a deadbeat father that didn't help my family out in any way, financially or emotionally. And that he couldn't show up for my children and me as an adult, let alone as a child. But when I walked in that room, I felt such a flood of emotion. I felt the presence of God. I felt the energetic footprint of what was left. There was this physical body laying there before me, but all that was left was what I call love. Love that is protection, love that is God, love that exists beyond anything that we can put into words. So I cleaned up his face. I called for a priest because he was Catholic, and I had a blessing for him because I knew that's what he would want. And I said some prayers. I said the prayer of protection. I said, I held a space of love. So what he couldn't do in life, he was able to do in death. The relationship I couldn't have with him when he was alive, I had in that moment. And it was interesting, just a few days before that, I had this magnificent dream. And I woke up and feeling so present and alive in it. There was this, I thought it was him, but I wasn't sure. And there was like this white light beaming down, and it seemed like doves. It was like hands were reaching up and hands were reaching down. And I now know that that was the presence of love. Because when you're that close to being both sides with both feet on either side of the veil, all that's left is that energetic vibrational footprint of love. So it doesn't change his earthly experience, but it does give me a place to connect and be present and know and have that connection that I needed my entire life. Metaphysically, Father means I have begotten a child. I've given origin to. I'm generating. And God as Father is cause of all life, and it's all being. For there is only one source. From all that comes all ideas. Returning to love, you're returning to that idea. The idea that the seed of that which is life and that which is a source of mind, and how life can be expressed anywhere and everywhere. It is in love that, in that presence, where we enter into a relationship where love is closer. It's closer than when our breath, and it's nearer than our hands and our feet. It's a practice and a state of consciousness. So as I speak to honoring thy Father, a power of protection, I have an earthly experience with my stepfather, which was amazing, whom I love very much. I have an experience with a biological father who I'm not proud. I have experiences with my children's biological fathers who I am not involved with and that are not present. But I can still feel that source and connection when I think about God. God like an all-abiding presence. And I think that's when Jesus, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he speaks out, Abba. In that close and intimate relationship, all that's left is love. So I know my spiritual roots, they're grounded and they're strong. They're the most strong in that which is love. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. That was very beautiful. The biggest takeaway that I received from your message was the part, those many takeaways. But one thing that really resonated with me was when you mentioned your father, you got a sneak peek of what a relationship, that there could be a relationship there, and then he just disappeared again. And that was something that I battled a lot through my life. Like, how can someone just withdraw so easily with no emotions attached? Or at least that's what I thought. You know, I know now there's emotions attached on both ends. It's just them trying to protect themselves as well, or sometimes. And this is what really resonated. Because I've spoken it to my brother Dominic many times, as he's not been present for his children in their lives. And I've learned to give gratitude to absence, because that is the protection a lot of times. And I say that because I had a father very present. So present that he kidnapped us from our mother, and drove us from California back home to Texas. And I've spoken about this before on this platform. And he brainwashed us that our mother didn't want us and that she was crazy. And she's clinically diagnosed as crazy. But that came later. I think he drove her crazy. And we all believed it. And we treated her like she was crazy. So when he took us, we thought he made it seem like he was protecting us. Only I can save you. But when he took us to what I call a house of horrors. And I mean, horrific things going on under the roof and nobody knowing. Everybody thinking that all was well because he was an MP in the Air Force. Because he was head security at the El Paso International Airport. So his word carried some weight. He had always been a drug trafficker for as long as he was a young boy. I mean, it's rooted where we're from. So he trained us how to live that lifestyle. And I'm wearing my camo today in honor of him, because he wanted us to be his little soldiers. But the way he trained us was through abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, fear. I spent so many years living in fear. And what's crazy about fear is that you can still grow in life. You can still achieve things, accolades, tenure, and still be led by fear. So what happens when that happens is you find a place where you're staring yourself in the mirror in life and you don't even know who you are. Because every decision you have made leading up to that point has all been in fear. It's never been intentional. You didn't embrace and honor, and give gratitude and breathe and know that all is well. It's a rat race, right? And you have your head down. So sometimes that absence, guys, is the protection. And I don't know what that means for you. But if it sparks something within you, I encourage you to just sit with it. Sit with it. It'll come through. Our next speaker, thank you, Lisa. Our next speaker is, thank you guys, Coach G. And he's, you've seen him on our platform a lot. He really shares a big part of his heart, has given us a good scope of his story. And he's talked about his father a lot. And we're just very grateful that he has the story he has with his father, which I'm sure he's going to share some more today. But he was willing when it came to a point of that footprint. He knew what that footprint looked like, but then he was also forced to take a new look of the reality of things and make space in his heart for that love with his father. And we're always so grateful of how authentically he shares his story and his heart. So I can't wait about what he's going to share. But before I introduce him, he's a part of right now an event called It's Not a Competition, It's Ministry. And check out his page. If you don't already follow him on social media. He's putting out a lot of content on that. The trailers are awesome. I can't wait to, it's building a lot of hype he'll tell you when it's going to be happening, but follow his page and take a look at his content because it's awesome. Here's Coach G.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
In the house and out here, it's your boy, Coach G. So another discussion on the journey of a warrior. Today, obviously another difficult topic for me, but I'm here, I'm present. As my sister said, showing up is half the battle. So honoring thy father, a piece of protection. Very difficult topic, as I said, for me. For me, honoring my father meant, as Izzy said, was distance. You know, in Luke, I can't remember the script of the exactly part, but in Luke it talks about fathers don't provoke your sons to wrath. And growing up as in a ministry household, my friends would go to church every week, and my friends would always celebrate my father. Man, you got the greatest father in the world. And I just remember saying, okay, because you can have him. Because I knew the man that I had to deal with when I got home. I knew the man I had to deal with when I got in the car or on the way in the car to church, you know, different things. So as I thought about this, I've gone so many different directions on what to talk about today. But one of the things I've learned in this assignment, that fathers are our silent heroes. So there's so many different things that I can talk about. This is a man that literally destroyed me my entire life. When I think of pain in my life, the epicenter of that is my father. A man that everyone idolized and worshiped in the church, held high regard and positions, great honor. I could go on and on and on. But I didn't see that man every day. So I did a lot of reflection in the assignment of this, you know, a piece of protection. So I'm trying to look, where was he that piece of protection for me? So I'm like, Lord, did I miss it? So in reflection, I backed up and kind of went back as far as I could to remember. And what a blessing in the remembrance. I remember times of joy and happiness. And I was a very active father with my children, you know, playing and wrestling and doing different things, always present in their events. And as I recalled, he wasn't that. He wasn't present in my events. I'm thinking about high school and, you know, all that. He wasn't present at any of my events. But as I reflected back deeper, he was present when I was a kid, a little bitty kid. I remember rolling around wrestling and all these little dog games and stuff and chasing my boys. I got from my father. I didn't even remember that. So I had to thank the Lord for that remembrance. But I remembered in that, you know, several different memories, but it brought me to a painful memory. We lived in St. Louis, and my father was a district manager for a company that I don't even think is in existence anymore, finance company. Did a great job and got promoted and got moved to Kansas City, which was the beginning of the end, really, for me, for my father. So this was a man who was a very proud man, worked his way up the ladder, became a manager, got promoted, moved to Kansas City because of that promotion. But being the man of integrity that he was, he realized that he had a staff of people that were doing some things, and I don't know how much you guys know about that, but redlining. I don't know if you know anything about redlining. Kansas City is notorious for redlining. But he noticed that in his staff, and he brought an halt to it, ended it. And some of the staff members reported that to the manager above him. And he was disciplined for that and eventually fired. It was a racist act that he was defending against, but yet they fired him. So he filed a lawsuit. Won his lawsuit, won a lot of money. But that was the day my father changed. So I remember the stories, the things that I was talking about before, him rolling around and playing in all these different games. But that was the day I felt like my father died. I remember in high school, I had to write an English paper on our fathers. And I'm like, what do I say? Because right now I really have nothing good to say. But, you know, being the star athlete, there was great expectations. People were, oh, I can't wait to hear what you're going to say about your father. And I'm like, I don't really have anything good to say. So I wrote a paper entitled The Day My Father Died. And I told the story. I really spilled out my heart in the paper. And I got an F on that paper. My English teacher felt like it was so disrespectful and dishonoring that I would talk about my father like that. But I spoke truth. Truth. And it wasn't even, for me, it wasn't even about the grade. It was an opportunity for me to share. And that was the first time that I'd really openly shared how I felt and what my experience was like. Unbeknownst to me, my mother found that note, found that paper in my room and showed it to my father. And you're talking about discipline that came down from the hands of my father after reading that. And just from there, our relationship got worse. I mean, this was a man that literally tore me down every chance he got. I remember getting married at a young age, giving up football scholarships, basketball, track scholarships, because me and my wife at that time, girlfriend became wife, got pregnant. And all I wanted to do, because of my experience with him, was to be a good father, to provide protection for my children. Now I have a son on the way, a child on the way, turned out to be a son. All I could think about was being protection for my son or my child. So I let everything else go and became a father. And I remember standing on the field at KU, and my brother was looking at that school for a football scholarship. And we went through all the different events with him, and then the coaches took him off to take him to the weight room. My father grabs me and puts his hand around my shoulder, and we're walking the field, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a beautiful moment for my brother. Now a beautiful moment with my father that I get to share with him. And what he did in that moment was remind me of how stupid I was. He told me to look around this field. This was your life that you gave up, but you were too stupid and you made the wrong choice. That moment wasn't about me. It was about my brother. I saw the coaches looking at me. You know, I'm 5 years older than my brother, and they're wishing, wish you had came here. You know, I could see that. Some of them were saying different things to me, but the moment wasn't about me. It was about my brother. But for him to take that moment and literally destroy me yet again just broke my heart. Fast forward again, I hit a point in life where life became hard. I lost a job, had to move back in with my parents. So I have a family of 3 at this time, married with a family of 3. And one of the things that I kind of said in my mind moving into their home was, I will not allow my father to treat my children the way he treated me. And he loved my oldest son, loved my baby boy, being the baby boy. But Dexter, my middle son, he treated just like he treated me. And I came in one day when he was reprimanding my son, and a rage came over me. And I literally said, enough is enough. Because if you say one more word or do one more thing to him, I was ready to take his life. And it was just years of buildup of things. So those are just examples of what I'm talking about. But in my reflection in this assignment, I also learned that fathers are silent heroes. Let me say that again. Fathers are silent heroes. Now, as a father, some of the things I've said and done, even to my children, were taken wrong, misunderstood, taken out of context. So as I reflected back on him, I had to reflect on his life. What happened to him to make him the man that he was to me? And that I didn't have to think very far, thinking about who I always deemed as my father, my grandfather, which was his father, my pawpaw. Everything I ever wanted in a father, I got in my pawpaw. So God being the God that he is, I didn't get that in my earthly father that was in my home. I got it through my grandfather. But as I reflected and I learned the story of my father's relationship with his father, everything he wanted from his father was given to me. And I had to imagine the pain and agony that he went through, that he desired every day. And he watched his son get those things from his father. So I always wondered when we came back in the summers, came back home, why would the temperature go up? And now I understood. Let me fast forward again, 63 days. I'm thankful for reconciliation. This ties in the piece of protection, because now I understood the protection that my father provided for me. 63 days he spent here in Kansas City in Research Hospital. And who did he call? Me. And who stood at his bedside for 63 days? And in those 63 days, that man who had spent 50 years in destroying me took 63 days to rebuild me. I can only imagine where I would be today if not for those 63 days. Because he remembered events that I had pushed down deep inside and forgotten intentionally. He remembered, articulated the thought, the feeling, son, this is what I should have said. This is what I should have done. This is why I did it. It was his protection. He saw the warrior in me. He saw the king in me. He saw the entrepreneur in me. And in his way, he was building me to be this great man, not realizing that everything, literally everything he said and did, even his looks, was utterly destroying me, was devastating me. But God, in those 63 days, he rebuilt the man that he had destroyed. So again, fathers are the silent heroes. In that reflection, it's helped me take a step back in my relationships with my sons right now. And because of my divorce, 34-year marriage ended in divorce, I'm estranged with my sons. So it's made me take a step back to reflect on things that I've said, things that I've done. One of the things I said is I never want to be like my father. If I'm not going to be anything else in this world, I'm never going to be like my father. And I overdid that. Trying not to be him, but that's the only example I really saw in my household every day. But it taught me to take a step back and reflect. And now I get to go back and clean up. I'm thankful for those 63 days before he passed that we could reconcile. So that gave me 2 years. 63 days after that gave me 2 years with the father that I wanted my entire life, that I got 2 years with him with. And I understood all those pieces of protection that he had brought. It all came back full circle. And now I'm taking that experience and taking a step back while I'm yet living and repairing some of the things that I've done with my sons. So that's my story. This is your boy, Coach G.
Thank you again, Gary, for sharing another authentic piece of your heart, a piece of your story. And you did share a piece of the puzzle today that helped put the story together of all the times you've shared leading up to this. You know, he had, in his world, a catastrophic event as the provider in your home. And then he was doing ministry as well. So you want to be, you don't want to fall short. You know, what happens when you feel like your life's falling apart? So, you know, we honor that part of your father's story as well, and we give thanks to it. And I'm just always grateful that you were willing to give him those 63 days. So thank you for that, because now we get to have Gary Newsom pouring into all of us with what you learned through that process. So thank you again. You shared about sharing vulnerably when you wrote that paper and being shamed and reprimanded for it. And it just reminds me again, my father, when he took us, I always say, I swear we had toys when we were in California. We lived on base and life was just woohoo, And then next thing you know, I'm in rural El Paso, right across the border. No one speaks English. And I'm 5 going on 6 and in this new world, and we don't have toys around. My dad started drilling in us that we have to become self-reliant on what God gave us, our God-given gifts, and toys were going to distract that. So he wanted us to be creative and create toys and not be fools and give the businesses our money, have them give us their money if we can create something. So we'd always be doing odd jobs with him. He was a handyman along with his full-time job, and instead of paying us, he would take us to lunch every weekend after, and we'd go across the border to Juarez, Mexico. And we'd always eat lunch there. And when you pay at those restaurants, they always had candy, the Mexican candy at the registers. And he always told us, I'll pay for your lunch. That's your payment for your work. If you want anything more, dessert or anything, you have to earn it. So we would have to sing, dance, do something for the people in the restaurant to earn the candy, was usually what it was for me. And I was never shy. When I was little, I was always been a very outgoing person, and that got really suppressed in life. But I would get on the chair, and I already was practicing on my dances and stuff. So I'd do my little thing and jump off, and okay, that's what I want. But as I started getting older, I have an older sister, who, again, when we were taken from California, we were being abused in all different ways. And I'm not here to tell her story, but she was being abused even more than I was by our father. His brother had a hold of me. And she had to be our mother during that time as well. And she was 12, 13. So she hated us. She grew to hate us. She hated me and my brother. And she would tell us that. And she would threaten our lives. We had weapons in the house. We were trained to use them at young ages. And she would tell us one of us weren't waking up the next day. Either me and my brother or she wasn't. But she just couldn't endure this life anymore. And I guess just the hatred, and people would tell me she was jealous of me, and I could never understand why. But when I would do what I was trained to do and enjoyed to do, dance and sing and love life and celebrate and enjoy, she would tell me how stupid I was, how stupid I looked, how I was an attention seeker, how I thought I was all that, and before I knew it, I was hiding from myself. I didn't want to be that person anymore. All it did was make other people feel uncomfortable. And I realized when other people are uncomfortable around me, I paid the price. That's how it felt. So again, we come together to have these, as Reverend Elisa calls them, and I love truth talks, just sharing a piece of our truth. It's to help remind you not to dim your light, even if other people can't handle it, because we are going to encounter those people. And it's not that they have a problem with you in particular, it's that they have a problem with themselves. And we don't shame them for that, right? We don't make ourselves wrong, but we don't make them wrong either. We just honor where they are on their path. And again, we send that love, we send that light, we send that peace, because we all are deserving of those attributes. So thank you again, Gary, for reminding us of that. And our next speaker is somebody who, with a lot of my story that I've shared, a lot of it, it's dark, it's yucky. It's, as God showed me, what built all that those yucky tumors within me when I was diagnosed with cancer, you know, and other stuff, is because I was holding on to all that stuff. I didn't know that it was okay to release and to allow other people to come in your life and help you gain alignment, mind, body, and soul. And I'm so grateful for this Activate Your Power Now family and what it's extended out to, because I've not only met one healer, I'm like in a room of healers right now, and that's just what comes my way now. And our next speaker is someone who not only myself and my husband have really been blessed to, as we go on this journey within, to also help honor the vessel as a whole. And when I say that, I say it's because Evan, he has some very magical hands. And when we've built up tension, my husband and I, from working, not stretching, not releasing, emotional stuff that we're not even thinking about, he has made house calls to us. And I don't know if he does it for everybody. If so, reach out to him. You want to. But he made house calls to us, literally, and came and just shared space with us, ate meals with us, and did some hands-on healing with our bodies. And I'm forever grateful for it, because it made all the world a difference. And I will say he will be hosting a chair massage event coming up in Overland Park very soon, and he'll tell you about that. But follow him to get the details or reach out to him. But our next speaker is Evan.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. And thank you, Izzy, for that lovely introduction. You have such a way with words. And actually, all of you, I want to also honor Elise and Gary for your talks this morning, because they've been very heart-opening and heart-expanding. And with what I do, it's very energy-based. And so I'm always in my flow, and I'm always listening to God and what Spirit is telling me. And also what this fly is telling me here. I'm going to be honest and authentic with you. What I wanted to share this morning, kind of changing it up a little bit because it's been inspired by our previous speakers. First off, I'll start with, I have a sunny disposition. You know, most people in my life know this about me. I like to look at the positive things in life and not so much of the negative. But the thing is, it's the negative that allows us to have those positive experiences. It is in that contrast that we know what we desire and what we can choose to bring forth into our lives. And so my story starts with my childhood. I grew up in Oakland, California. I was born to two musicians. My mother is a singer and my father is a guitarist. And growing up in Oakland wasn't easy. It was violence, a lot of unsafety, and basically my parents did the best they could to raise me and my younger brother as well. But there was one point in my life where I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel cared for. And this was at a time in my life where my father ended up leaving California because he couldn't deal with my mother anymore. And at this point in my life, I had a lot I was going through internally. I was always trying to be the good child, always behaving, always helping those around me, always giving my last, because that's what I saw my mother doing. And I valued her kindness. I loved how her kindness inspired so much love from others. But there was times where I felt like I wasn't getting that kindness from her. My father left, and I was at a place in my life where I had to be the man of the house. And I had no clue what that was or how to be that. There was so much pressure on me to do things I wasn't taught. And all I wanted to do was do the best I could for me, my younger brother. And I just wanted my father in my life. I didn't have easy access to him because my mother at that point had lots of things that lots of opinions she had to say about him. And then this is where emotional, verbal abuse would come in, because now being like my father was an insult. Things that I would say, you sound just like David. You sound just like your father. And that, as a child, like, what place does that put you at? Because you are, or for one hand, you are your father. You are your mother too. And you're a mix of both of them. And it's like, I'm being insulted for being who I am. So there was a lot of anger and resentment that I built up toward my mother. And there was a lot of anger and resentment that I had built up towards my father as well, because I took on my mother's views of how she viewed him. Flash forward, I am in high school at this point. The time period I just told you, my father left at the beginning of my middle school years, so I was around 10 or 11. And at this point now, I'm 17, 18, about to go into my adult life. At this point, I was learning to enjoy life through dance and music. I was performing all across the Bay Area with a youth performance group called Imani's Dream, which Imani in African means faith. So Imani's Dream was faith in your dream. And so it was inspiring hope within me and bringing out so much joy to be able to perform with this group. One of the biggest performances we got to do was the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival, where hundreds of ethnic groups got to perform and audition to be a part of this group, but only 12 were picked. And Imani's Dream was one of the groups to be picked to represent America. I was so excited to be picked and perform for this group and for this production, world-changing experience. But at the same time, I had stuff going on at home. At this point, we weren't making a lot of money. My mother actually left her job, and for reasons that were stressful to her, and we were behind on bills and rent, and we were being threatened with eviction. And at that time, I had been working since I was 13 years old, giving all, if not half, of my paycheck to my mother, but I was still getting, there was still more that needed to be done. At that time, I felt like I wasn't enough. Everything I did wasn't enough. And I just needed some guidance, and I needed some help in my life. So I decided to reach out to my father. We had talked here and there throughout my life, but it was never really consistent. But at this point, I needed him because I was at a breaking point for myself. And to be honest, I couldn't stand my mother. I love her dearly, but I couldn't stand her. Talking with my father, he actually encouraged me to start separating myself from her, because as a boy becoming a man, that's what boys do. As my friend Jay actually told me earlier today, it is something that boys do. You need to separate and become a man and start going out and doing things for your own. So he encouraged me actually to join the military, join the Air Force, so that I can get 3 hots in a cot. They're going to teach me skills. And I'll get a chance to live my life and have my own life experiences, which is something that I really wanted and hoped for, more control and power over my life. And so I did that. Matter of fact, in order to do that, I had to tell my mother the day before I left so that I wouldn't feel guilty or be guilted into staying when I really didn't want to. I look back on that time and sometimes I feel like I regret it. I should have just, should have been man enough to tell her earlier or what have you. But I did the best I could do at that point. And I give myself grace for that now, because that was ultimately one of the choices that led me to where I am today. Transferring that time from being with my mother, helping my mother raising me, it was now my father who I was getting my advice from all through my military career. He was helping me, give me all kinds of advice to help equip myself to do the things I needed to do for me. Now, granted, our relationship wasn't perfect and there was a lot of growth, and I'm so thankful for this because I've literally seen my father change from when I was a boy to when I was 18, and then even now that our relationship, we're able to talk about so much that we hadn't before. It was Izzy earlier that mentioned the protection of absence. And getting to know my father now, I believe that it was a reason why he needed to be absent during that time and then be brought back into my life when it needed to be. So, some things that have helped me do this now. I have my acronym is G, get honest with yourself. Get honest with your childhood, get honest with who you are, get honest with how you are, and learn who you are. You know thyself.
Yes.
And you can know thyself by looking at your parents, seeing things that you have in common, things that you don't want, and then creating that person of who you want to be for yourself. You understand that life is about contrast. It's about challenges. It's the challenges that you're giving to overcome that gives you the power to actually overcome them. R, remember who you are to your core, or rewire your past. We all have the choice to look at a perception and change what we see about it. We can look at an experience and we, especially as we get more wisdom, are able to look at the pieces of knowledge that were actually in that, as Gary actually said during his talk. And then the last U, unleash yourself, unleash your traumas, unleash your repressed emotions. Allow that energy to come up and process it. I've done a lot of suppressing of my emotions over the year because I was trying to be somebody for other people instead of the man I need to be for myself. And so now I stand in my power today as Evan Ivory Long, which, by the way, Ivory is my mother's name, Long is my father's name, and I am the first of my name. And I am the wholeness guru. Wholeness meaning the harmonious union of one. And guru is the acronym I gave you earlier. And also, God can only use the real you.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Evan. I know you had mentioned when we spoke, because you weren't able to come last month, but really wanted to, but you asked about bringing in that part of honoring thy mother this month as well with honoring thy father. And I say, hey, with AYPN, we show up authentically. we have a topic, but we don't really have too many rules here. It's show up authentic is what we ask, and share a piece of not only what you went through, but what has it gained you, the process. What's been activated through the process, and trust in the process. And again, I just have to tie up again, just like with Gary and with me with my own story. It's like you have to be willing, though, right? We talked the power of will last year. You have to be willing to be the one to show up even when others aren't or haven't or hadn't. So it takes a lot for us to say, yes, I'm willing to step into this new season with you, even though you don't deserve it. Even though it's risky. We don't know if they're truly a better them or not at that point. But we're going to show up anyway, because we know that that voice that was always, stay true to you, that voice that was always speaking to you and was always trying to comfort you through what you were going through, but you said, shut up, because there's no comfort here. This hurts. The ability to breathe and allow those emotions and those feelings to not be tethered to you and release them. Even if they're just barely released enough to make space to weasel your way through into that new relationship. Then once you step in, the floodgates open. The divineness has space to come through. So thank you again for that beautiful share. I hope all of you are getting value from these messages. I know that everybody's story we're not going to relate to everybody's story, but the goal is that we come together and we share them because we know somebody out there is going to resonate with it. And we just are here to, one, help ourselves by stepping and answering the call. And two, if we inspire one person or just help one person just pause and breathe and allow God to inspire them, then we're doing our part. So I'd like to introduce my next speaker, and that is a new activator, Micah. She is just a beautiful spirit, so in alignment with us activators of what we say we're here to do, the awakenings we're having, the passion behind it. She is not only a manager to some event spaces, which we're really having some conversations about. Like we're still structuring what AYPN is and how we're moving forward. We're very grateful for ACA. They've been nothing but wonderful to us, and we're thankful to be able to host here. But we're looking to collaborate with Micah. Plus, she has her own business, Sage. Please tell me again.
Bites.
Sage Bites.
Yes.
Sage Bites Artistry, where she is a caterer, but more than that, she loves the art of food, and her setups are just amazingly beautiful. Again, check her out on social media, and you'll get to see some of what she's done, and we can't wait to collaborate with her. And we're grateful to have her here today sharing. Please welcome Micah.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for having me here today. This is actually my first public speaking event for myself. I've done a lot of speaking for other businesses. I've done a lot of presentations for other businesses. This is the first time that I'm showing up as me, for me, and for all of you. So it's very exciting for me. I am a food artist. My business is Sage Bites Food Artistry. You can find us at foodisart.com. I just really, really, really have a passion for food. And it's really funny because I have only visited this group one time. It was our last month's, and there were some beautiful speakers about how to honor your mother, or about honoring thy mother. And immediately I was like, I need to get in with this group. Like, I love the energy, and I love everything that you're doing and offering the community, and I was like, I would love to be a part of this. Immediately I knew that. And fortunately, James saw that in me too. Thank you, James, and says, well, you should consider speaking. And I was like, yes, let's go. So after sitting down with James and Izzy and discussing where I could bring part of my story to the community, where I could start here. They sent a list of all of the topics, and I remember very distinctly thinking, I would love to speak at this one and this one. I will attend How to Honor Your Father. Certainly not one I should be speaking at. And so immediately I get, hey, we had somebody drop out. Could you speak at this one? And I said, okay, God, let's go. Let's do this. Because immediately my father wounds came up. And I immediately thought, okay, I have 2 weeks to go ahead and heal all of my daddy issues so that I can come in here and really offer anybody anything. And I was thinking that exact thing on my way here this morning. I've got about 2 hours to heal all my daddy issues before I stand behind that camera and speak about honoring my father. So I'm here to tell you I achieved it. No, I really didn't. But I am happy to be in a place where I know that I can. And so what I really did to be able to take a part of me that I felt had not been fully healed yet and still have the bravery to stand in front of you all today and speak on this issue as a not feeling fully healed person, is I actually trusted in our Father. I trusted in our Father. I immediately said, okay, God, that's the one I didn't want to do, but that's the one you told me to do, so I'm going to do it. And I spent a couple weeks trying to prepare, and I've never had a block like I've had it blocked. And I know it was because I was supposed to stand here right now in this moment, knowing full well that our Father was going to hand me everything that you needed to hear, everything that I needed to hear, because I don't even know it yet. And it's a beautiful gift to be given, because this isn't the first time I've been able to receive that beautiful blessing from God. And as I sit here now, I'm going over one story about my father that I do want to share with you. Background, I didn't meet my dad until I was 11. And that is just super comp. You have to buy the book. On your way. I promise. But whenever I was a kid, 8, 9 years old, there was a broken down building across the street from my house. It was just a broken wall standing there, just structure all broken down, but the foundation was there. And as a little girl, because I was living in a toxic environment, and I didn't know my father, but I knew he was a Marine, and you know, if you're in the military, you fly, right? So anybody coming, I was 9, I didn't know. Every time a plane would come by, I would lay there on that wall and just pray that that was my daddy coming to rescue me. Just pray. The daddies too, right? They protect you, they rescue you, right? Fast forward, I didn't meet my father, and he did not rescue me. There's another toxic cycle in my life to match the other ones that I have been blessed with. And I can truly sit here and say I have been blessed with. Because over the past couple of years, our Father came to me and said enough is enough. And it's time. And revealed to me that I was given these blessings of toxic cycles because God also gives me the strength. And how beautiful is it to stand before you as a generational cycle breaker in my family and know that I've been chosen, that God saw something inside of me that, Lord, I never saw. I resonated with each and every one of your stories today. Each and every one, there was a piece of it. My father was military. I got invited to my own house of horrors. I had my own trying to make it work and realizing that I was still just stepping outside of who I was. And as I was able to really understand that my father and my mother, all of the people in my life that I had expectations for and they didn't meet, the same way that I'm sure my children have expectations for me that I may not meet, we all truly are doing the best that we can with what we have at the time. And that's for a reason. Because if I had not gone through abandonment, neglect, abuse, enter any toxic situation you want to hear, I would not have the strength to have just left a toxic marriage. I would not have had the strength to have lost my house, my car, my business, my restaurant, half of my time with my children, and still be standing before you today getting ready to launch a new business. Getting ready to step into the power of public speaking and share with all of you, it can be done. And no matter how many times you sit down, you're not You haven't failed if you get back up.
That's right.
Come on, girl.
Period. And I've been down. I've been through it. And I cannot wait to go hug that one person who's like, I never thought I could get out of this marriage, but you.
Yes.
Like, that's why I did that. That's why I'm here. So my father, I was 18. I had been smoking since I was 9 years old, y'all. Listen. I had been smoking since I was 9. Didn't know it was weird, right? You know, the family I was in. I, of course, would never smoke in front of my father. That is disrespectful. And my father would never smoke in front of his father, even though everybody, you know, we all know what's going on around here. We're just hiding it back here. This is the one thing that has stuck out to me all week as I sit there and try to think of a good story for my father. We were going fishing, and he was an amazing fisher. Okay, I'll give you that. He's a great fisher. He would even sing to the fish, "Let's go fish," and then force me to sing the goldfish song. We were not going to do that one. But he was headed into the gas station to get some bait, and we were headed out onto the boat all day long together. We were trying to reconnect a little bit, as happens. And he looked over at me and he goes, "You know, I would avoid hanging out with my father and my mother a lot because I couldn't smoke in front of them. Because I don't want that here." So whenever he came out of that gas station, terrified. I mean, I had teachers who were scared of this man. Terrified 18-year-old me, sitting in that truck with a cigarette. Do you think I puffed on it? Hell no. But I held it in front of my father. And at the time, I think he was just doing what he could with what he had to really show me what has been the most important lesson. And that's to show up for who I am. This is who I am. And the people who want to be here are going to be in that boat. They are. And I don't have to hide any pieces of me to get there. And if whether or not he was intentionally teaching that lesson, I don't know. But that's something that I get to take from him. And I also learned to save myself, right? There's that little girl waiting on that wall for somebody to come save her. Guess what I'm doing right now? I walked into this meeting and heard the best story, and I'm going to steal it. I hope you're not planning on using it. I'm going to steal it. But a perspective on Beauty and the Beast that hit me so hard. All the Beast needed to do to break the curse for his entire house of those beautiful staff was to be loved by someone. And he waited all that time, right? Waited all that time for Beauty to come along and love him. But what if he just loved himself? And girl, I tell you, I'm about dropped right here when you said that. Because that's what I managed to do. And maybe he didn't teach me directly. Maybe he didn't protect me, or he definitely did not protect me directly. But damn, did he teach me to protect myself? And that's my story about my dad.
Thank you. Thank you for that truth, and you did a great job. Wouldn't you guys say she did a great job for the first time? Thank you for that. And if you're needing a validation on somebody that you touched today with your story, I know there's going to be many more, but you just spoke to me. You just mentored to me, and you brought something full circle for me with my son standing in the room. My kids don't come to all my events, and that's okay. That's not because they don't want to or they don't want to support me. It just doesn't always work out where they could be here. And my middle son, Daniel, which y'all have heard me speak about over and over again on this platform. And, but you said something to me about doing the best that we are capable of doing in the moment. And he could probably share stories himself, and he will, because he said he'll be getting on stage this year. But he could come up here today, and I could tell you that I took my story of abuse and all of the things that I went through and did better with my children. I did my best. again, absence could be the protection at times because my parents weren't able to be present throughout my life. We were like little ping pongs and with different people in our life. And thank goodness my dad is one of 11 because we didn't have to go into foster care. We got to be within our family. But I always had this big chip on my shoulder because I broke the cycle. I was doing what they couldn't do, and that was be present. But ask my kids how many times I was scary in that presence. How many times was I in front of them with my fist balled and telling them how fucking lucky they are, that I fucking love them. Because these fists belong on them right now. But instead of hurting you, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to destroy whatever's next to me. So they would see the anger. They would see my whole psyche change. They would see, and I would just go crazy. And if you got in my way, then you got what you asked for. And that's how I talked to my kids when they were little. But I was present. So you couldn't tell me nothing. I was here. Oh yeah, worry about your own kids. You couldn't even be there for us, but you're gonna sit here and tell me that I'm not parenting my kids right? Fuck you. That's what I would say to anybody. I didn't care who it was. So again, I talk about being present. It isn't always good enough. Okay, we have to know who we are before we can show up authentically us. And I was so misconstrued of who I was and who I needed to be and who I should be. And all the voices were talking at the same time, not including the outer voices. And the dangerous part in my story was that I was receiving all this outer validation. Because again, even through the muck, you can be successful. You can show up in duality, right? I talk about how duality is a thing that's necessary with intention. Because at some point or another, you have to merge the worlds before you can come show up to serve others. But I had to live in duality for over 20 years. That was the only way to separate myself from all of my programmings, find a new way of existing, and then come full circle. Praise God, amen. Come full circle so that I can learn more authentically who I am and what I'm here to do. And then I can share authentic space with others so that they could do the same. But that was a big revelation for me these last couple years as I've been being unlayered and activated was, no, girl, you did good. Like, give yourself kudos, but you might have broken a lot of cycles, but let's go ahead and pull out the quick list of the ones you created. And now my kids have cycles to break. And that's cool. It's part of the process, right? We're all here doing this human thing together, just like you keep hearing. The willingness. Let's be willing to change, to seek something new, something different, something outside our box, so that we can go exploring life and then tie up. Okay, that's for me, that's not for me. That's for me, that's not for me. And then put together who you truly are and who you want to be moving forward. The power is yours. Our next speaker is somebody I met. It's been over a year now, close to a year. It's been close to a year now. And it was actually at a BTBY networking event leading up to a conference. And he went to go network because he's, what I'm realizing, he's like while we're speaking of the word guru, he's the networking guru. I tell you, once you meet him, once you connect with him, and he gets a view of what your passions are and what you're seeking, the dots just start connecting. And he is very well connected in the metro and beyond, I'm learning. But he's been nothing but resourceful to me to activate your power now, helping us, guiding us with what we say we want to do. And he hosts his own networking event, about twice a year? And it's all about spiritual health, physical health, just merging all those worlds of health to be in alignment of self and step out into this world confident as he does And I'm just excited to hear what he has to share today. He's impressed me when I went to his networking event. I'm like, this guy is not just connected, he's very knowledgeable. So please welcome Clinton.
I was looking around seeing who she was describing. Who was the person? I'm my kid's dad. And when you talk about honoring your father for a couple of minutes, I'm going to honor my kid's dad. I have two kids, Desiree and Clint. And these two quick stories about both of those kids. My daughter Desiree was a flight attendant for an airline. During the training, she called me and she said, Dad, one of the benefits of being a flight attendant is that parents can fly free. And I said, wow. And then she said, where would you like to go? And at the time, I said, Dallas, Texas. A couple of days later, she called me back and she said, it's all set. All you have to do is go and the ticket is done. You have to show ID. My daughter at the time was 20 years old. And I said, she did not know about business. When you hear that word free, free is not really free. I was thinking to myself. So the day of the flight, I go out to KCI, park my car, got on the shuttle, go to the airline, and I'm standing in line, and I was about the third or fourth person in line, and finally, the person behind the counter said, you're next. So I go up to the counter, and I had my hand in my pocket, with my credit card on one side and cash on the other side. Because I knew that person at the counter was going to ask me for something. Money, credit card, or something. So I go up to the counter and she said, may I see your ID? And I showed her my ID. And she said, Mr. Wynn, do you have any baggage? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I have 2 baggage. And she said, did anybody give you anything to put on the flight? I said, no, ma'am. Being very nice to her. Waiting for her to ask me for something. And she typed in the information and she said, you're going to Dallas? I said, yes, ma'am. Very nice. And then she said, the ticket is free. Would you like to go first class or coach? And I looked at her and she looked at me and I thought, wow. But let me share with you. She was teaching me a lesson that I'm going to share with you now. The choice in life. We wake up every day and we get a choice of how we're going to live this day. Will it be first class or coach? In life, the ticket is free. We wake up in the morning, it does not cost a dime when we make that choice between first class or coach. What is the difference? First class means that you are a nice person. First class means that you're an honorable person. First class means that you say to your partner, your friend, what can I do to help you? That is first class living. First class has taught me that I have a free choice. The difference between a rock and a human being can change. You can take it in yourself right now, in your heart, and say, from this moment on, I'm going to live a first class life. I'm going to be a nice person to my kids, to my spouse, to my friends, to the people I encounter. You have a choice and you have control. When you say honor your father, honor your mother, you can wake up every day and say, regardless of the things that have happened to me, and I'm inspired by all the speakers this morning, regardless of the things that happened to me in the past, right now, I'm going to stand tall and be a first class person. I'm going to be as nice as I can, as kind as I can, even to people that's not nice to me. My daughter gave me a first class ticket. I learned a lesson standing right at that counter, that I have a choice in my life to be a first class person. Here's the second story. I have a son, Clint. He was about 6 years old. He was running through the house one day. And I said, Clint, you got school tomorrow, stop it. And 6 years run back and forth. And I finally grabbed him. And I took him to bed. I put him in the bed, pulled the cover on top of him, and I reached over to turn out the light. And he said, Dad, in my mind, I'm still up. And I said, Clint, you won, man. But he also taught me a lesson. In my mind, with all of the problems happening in this world, with all of the complaints, and all of the pain and all of the heartaches, all of the job losses and all of the economy and the politics. I'm not going to get into politics. All of the politics. In your mind, you can still be up. Still be up. One of the objectives of our meeting today, and I thank you, Izzy, for inviting me. One of the objectives to me is that when we walk into this building today, we hope that we are inspired and we're touched in some way, that when we walk out, we will be better people. If we come together as a group, we can help this area, help this state, help this country, and help this world. And how can we do it? First story, make up in our mind. You have control, you have power to be a much better person. You have the power. There's nobody in the world, nobody, even people in concentration camps, even people in the hospital. I'm in healthcare. I see a lot of sick people. And there are two types of patients. Some with a good attitude, some with a bad attitude. And you know what's in between? A choice. You really have a choice to say to yourself, I'm going to do the best I can right now. To be a nice guy, to be a nice dad, a nice mom, a nice teacher, a nice friend, a nice spouse. The words that come out of our mouth, my last point here, we have control. There's no evil spirit behind us, no heartache or pain. We really have control. There's a little thing in the brain called the hippocampus, and it controls the body to the most part. We have power to select our words, select our interactions, and make a difference. And we coming together, man, there is power here in the stories, in the voices, in the memories. And if we come together as a group, we can make a fantastic change. Yes. Now, last point and I'm done. The question is, when do we do it? How do we do it? We can do it right now, today. And you don't have to get up. You don't have to pay anything. I don't need any money or nothing. You can do it within yourself and say, from here on, I'm going to do the very best I can to be the very best person I can. And then the second part, reach out and touch somebody else. And the two of you together, or the three of you together, or the 10 of us together can make a fantastic difference in all of our lives. So I thank you all.
Yes. Thank you, Clinton. So the power of choice, I mean, what a powerful thing. And you kept using the word activate, activate, activate. It's a power. I'm sorry, not activate. I was hearing activate. We're saying power, power, power. We all have the power. And yes, and that's why we're here together to activate your power. Come on, bro. Your power is all within. It's whatever. It's different layers that it becomes, since I've become aware, right, of being present and having a greater understanding of this journey that we're on. And it's knowing that I'm chasing activation, because we're going to be activated into different levels of our power through different seasons of our life. So it's never about shaming yourself because you feel activated today and inspired and powerful. Like you want to go make good choices and change the world. But next week you might wake up feeling heavy. Well, wait, I was just powerful. Oh, it was a facade. It wasn't real. Oh, I thought it was mine, but it's not really mine to do. It's for other people that are blessed. These are naming things that have flown through my mind, through my life. But you're so right. The power, we all have that power within us, and we just need to activate it. And that's where with the Activate Your Power Now workshop, we help people create their own power path process. And that's a day-to-day practice, because we never are going to perfect anything. It's about being willing to continuously practice. So it's that day-to-day practices to stay in alignment and true to self, so that you can make those good choices. Be clear-headed instead of feeling like everything's just mixed up in your head and everything. But that power of choice, choose to show up for yourself. choose to continuously activate, choose to meet new people, hear new stories. So thank you again for that. And then I just had to giggle with nothing in life is free and what your son did to you, because I don't know, maybe he's a Gemini, maybe he's not, but I am. And that was so me growing up. I'm like, you cannot force me to do anything, and I will go above and beyond to prove that point. And then my kids did it to me as well. I have my oldest son. Share that story another time, but it was hilarious. It really made me see that I really don't hold any power in controlling you, your vessel, or your thoughts, or your mind. So how about I take all that energy and work on controlling my own, where I call, I've been cussing already today, but I had to learn how to mind my fucking business, is really what I had to do. Because my business is mine to do. My emotions, my thought process, how I'm showing up, all of that, that's mine to do. I don't gotta worry about how Gary's showing up. I gotta make sure that I make the right choice to show up as the intentional healer, what God has told me I am. So our next speaker, I talked a little bit about the workshop. We'll be launching that for this year in the next coming up months. Again, we have some things just shifting and changing within AYPN, but it's all beautiful things. And I have some more people in the room that I'm going to bring up at the end of this event to speak on an event we have coming up. But our workshop, we have, again, that Power Path process, Mastering the Dream. Part of that workshop is a release session where we go really deep within self to figure out who you are and why. And then once you start that understanding of yourself and start putting it on paper, then our next speaker, Evie, the Healer of Queens, she takes us through this really deep release session. And that's just releasing with love, releasing the shame, right? Embracing the love, knowing that it was always rooted within you. She's just a beautiful person that has already helped so many people, just us activators, and it's been a ripple effect to many others, even on other platforms, that they've just become awakened into their truth by releasing all that was never theirs to take forward with them. So it's a very special speaker coming up next because she's a leader here at Activate Your Power Now. I'd like to introduce the Healer of Queens, Evie Bowen.
Thank you so much. I just want all of you to take a deep breath and push it out. This has been a heavy day, but it is so amazing because it's been a releasing day. This is your releasing day. Everyone who has spoken today has been releasing all day. Those memories, that pain, that stuff, those conversations, you online, you have been privileged to enter into each one of the speakers before me's lives and see their release in active live view. We have been watching them release all day long. Things that may have been holding onto them, harboring them, they've been wondering and preparing for this all week. And I just want to say thank you, first off, to everybody and give you all self a hand before we start. So I made my sister come with me today because I needed her with me. And the reason why I needed her with me is because I told Izzy, put me wherever you want me to and I'll speak on whatever you want me to speak on. But this one's hard for me, as all the speakers before me have said. But the reason why it's hard is not because, my God. When I was a child, I decided who my father was. See, I didn't meet him till I was 18. And my mindset when I started sitting down to write this or to come up with what I needed to say to you all today was that Santa Claus isn't real. What do you do when Santa Claus isn't real? What do you do as a kid when you found out that Santa Claus isn't real? You see, when I was a child, I didn't meet my dad till I was 18. So when I was a child, he was everything, like our previous speaker who was looking at the airplanes. See, in my head, my dad had to be Superman, Batman. He had to be somebody because why wasn't he here? So I had to make him a hero so that I didn't feel like the zero he left. I had to make him a hero for me because he had to be doing something magical and great and big to walk away from me. Was I that bad? As a child, my people around you try to make you feel better, right? And tell you things like, my grandmother, God rest her soul, she's a sweet woman. She used to tell me that Jesus was my daddy, and that's why he was gone, because he had the whole world to save, right? Then I was told, as I got older, that my dad had a family somewhere, but it was a boy. So he left because I wasn't a boy. And so I set out to be the best man I could be. He wasn't there, so if I could show up and when I met him, if I was a good man, he would love me and be there for me. But what happens when Santa Claus isn't real? In the Bible, in the top 5 of the 10 Commandments, the top 5 says honor your father and mother. That's Exodus 20 and 12. In the top 5 for God, it says to honor thy father and thy mother. The first 4 were about God himself. The rest of them, but the top 5. So if your father can meet the top 5, then why was I just nothing? Why was I a 0 on the top 5 hit list? You see, he was supposed to be bigger. I was supposed to matter to him. I'm his child. And the crazy part is now we're friends. See, I didn't get a father, I got a friend. See, it was too late. I was already 18. And when I met him, I met and found out that fathers, well, they're fallible. Fathers are fallible. Mothers are fallible, but fathers are fallible because the expectation is set in the top 5. The best book in the world from Genesis to Revelation, but in the top 5, there sits fathers. Fatherhood and motherhood are sitting in the top 5. And yet when we shuck those responsibilities, we don't honor the top 5. God's word alone stated the top 5. And we couldn't be honored by the top 5 if we shut the responsibility of the name that we're called. I am called mother. I am a queen. I give life. But I cannot give you life without the Father. He's required. I can always have seeds planted, but I can't give you life without the Father. He's in the top 5. You have to have the Father. We've heard about different versions of fathers, and at the end, every speaker before you has said, I was able to heal my top 5 before they took their last breath, before I can see them as a person, before he was the man before me. I got my top 5 back. It is huge when you can get back your top 5. It's even bigger when you can wear your crown that can't be adjusted by those who put you here. I have to pick up my crown. I call myself the healer of queens because I have watched women lose their royalty in a bloodline that was already defined. I have watched men lose their worth by deciding to become what society says he or she or them or they should be. It is a definition that cannot be changed because you want to be in a fad. The inclusivity, the reason why I hate the word inclusive is because it's excluding everything that I was born to be. I have to be included in your expectation of the box that you have for me. I can only be what you see in me, so I have to adapt to that because somehow my only business on this earth is to be included in what you excluded me from. I have to be who I am, authentically showing up and believing who it is, but my father was not that. You see, I had made him Superman. He was everything. He was bigger. He was this man, this giant. I had made him my huge thing, and turned out that he was really Goliath, and I had to beat my idea of him for him to actually show up who he was for me. For him to be my friend, I had to take off my expectations of who he had to be for me. See, when I met him, I was 18 and I was excited and I was already a mother. See, I had my title and he had his. But when he walked into my house and I looked at this man, he was human. He didn't have any armor, he couldn't fly, he was just a man. Just a regular guy. Fallible. A father. Fallible. Fallible. If I can accept you fallible, I can love you better. If I can't accept what you weren't for me and let that be moved past so I can see what you are for me. My dad is one of my best friends now. And we're good, and he's a preacher, and it's so funny because I tell people I'm a preacher's kid, I'm also a cop's kid. But I'm also really cool with this guy I met at 18, and we've been in this great relationship ever since. But it's because I saw him fallible. Because I had to drop off all the expectations of the Superman that was supposed to be in my life. Because everybody is so excited about Superman, and yet no one realized that if any of us watched all the Superman movies, do you remember the one where he just didn't want to be Superman anymore? Do you remember the one where Clark was like, man, if they would just save themselves, I could take a break. Do you know where he hid? He went all the way up into a mountain somewhere to hide, and the world was in chaos all around him. Him saving it every time didn't make a change. See, we run around and we want to save everyone, and yet you want to save everybody and forgot to save yourself. And then you're so busy trying to be Superman and put on that cape that you are choking yourself because you forgot you were fallible while you were trying to be perfect. How can you be perfect? What example do you have? Genesis to Revelations is the only one you can find. And he spent 33 years trying to convince us of things that we're still trying to believe to this day. There's a lot of people that still say it's incorrect. A lot of people will still argue you down. No, but he was perfect. But I'm fallible. So I have to put him, God, into this box of fallibility so that I can make myself perfection. That doesn't make much sense, does it? I have to be perfect to be fallible, but fallible to be mistaken to be. Where am I? I'm lost in translation of the things that you thought I was supposed to be because I was defined by you and not me. I forgot who I was. Losing myself in the battle of what your expectations are for me. I forgot who I was because I decided that I could only be who you thought me to be so that you would at least think of me. But what happens when I don't think of me? What happens when I have this huge expectation for who I must be and then I decide that I can't be that person either because what if they don't like me? See, that little girl is still feeling sometimes at that zero, feeling that, ooh. The funny part is I have 7 brothers. 7. I have brothers who say to me, you're the reason why I'm the man that I am. And it's confusing because I'm not a man. But some of them, one brother in particular, said that you are the best version of the man I want to be because you told me I could be exactly who I am because the man you see in me is achievable. Fathers are required. They're not options. They're required. Yes, single mothers, we can do, yeah, I get it. But I could not raise my sons to be men until I knew what one was. And I had to honor the fathering that they needed. I had to honor the males in their lives. And sometimes your father is not who helped your mother make you. Your father is the leader who poured into you, the pastor who loved you, the friend who showed you, the buddies in your life, the people who showed up afterwards, the ones who can say, I messed up at first. I was fallible first. Now watch me grow. When you plant into someone, you have to decide what you're going to do. Will you prune them? Will you let them grow? Or will you put the seed down, throw the dirt, and let them figure it out. I plant seeds, but I also nurture where I plant because I am fallible first. No one can grow without being watered, poured into, and loved on. And yet, we don't even see how required the labels and tables are because we're too busy turning them for someone else. Be who you are. Honor your own protection. Heal yourself. Become who it is. Take off the cape because even Superman didn't wear it all the time. Peace.
I love these events just because all my takeaways, I'm like, woo, okay. Thank you, Evie. And what you mentioned about fallibility, right? Allowing people to be people. And like Reverend Elisa always says, we're spirits having a human experience. So we have to be able to extend that out to the people in our world as well, not just use that as our little piece of protection as we're navigating along, like, hey, I'm human, you know. No, know that the people who hurt you, who have been involved in situations that carry pain for you, they're fallible people as well. And sometimes it's about releasing, like Evie said, those expectations of who the people need to be. I'll tie it up real quick with a little piece of truth of myself, of how I resonated, and that is with my children's biological fathers. She really brought me full circle in thoughts of them, because sure, if I tell the story of what it looked like, they were undeserving to have time with my kids if I allowed other people to say their opinions. But I never poured into my kids that he wasn't worthy. I always just left space for him to just be who he was, and knowing that they will make their own determination of what that is for them. But I knew what it felt like to be constantly told, and like Evan said, your parents are nothing. Your mom is worse than a dog because a dog won't even leave her pups. And she's abandoned you numerous times. You know, your dad is a lost cause. He can never be saved. But then they say, you're just like your father. You're just like your mother. Oh, so I'm a lost cause as well. So I have no value. I have no purpose. When we hold these expectations, you see the people, my dad's family were just seeing my dad and my mom for the people they knew they could be. But they forgot to honor that season of their life of they were just being who they were at that time on their own path of learning. So again, that was something that I tried not to pass on to my kids, of saying what a piece of shit their fathers were, because I wanted them to just make their own decision. I think that's so important in teaching them that, yes, we're all fallible. We're all going to fall short and make mistakes in one area of our life. Okay, in this case, it's in parenting. Some people, they rock parenting, but they suck over here in this area of life. So don't ever think that anybody has it fully put together. So I know it's been a great, how long have we been on? Hour and 43 minutes. Lots of great stories. I hope that, again, you're taking notes. You guys watch replays. I watch them, I listen, and I get new messages constantly just by the replays, stuff I didn't catch the first time. Real quick before we end, I want to go ahead and talk about an event that Activate Your Power Now has coming up on the 22nd of June. It's a Saturday, and we'll be hosting at Milo Farms. Do you mind coming and speaking a little bit on what we're going to be doing at the event?
I don't mind, but if you give me the microphone, I'm going to need to say a few more things.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. If anybody has to leave, we won't feel it disrespectful if you leave, but we want to share this. We're really excited about this collaboration with Sci Adventure Club. And I'm going to go ahead and let Gina share what's coming up.
Let me come up here.
Yep.
Okay.
Come right on up so we can tell our virtual world and the people in the room.
Okay, well, yeah, I just want to start off by saying, just moments before coming in here. See, I'm going to try really good not to go on too many rabbit trails, but let me start by saying, James came into my life in just a remarkable time, early 22, and we had this energetic connection. We helped each other with little silly healing pieces, such as getting rid of dairy, cheese, and tortilla chips. So that's a story for another time. But it connected us in such a way that though we talked here and though we talked there, there are times where that talking stopped, but the energy and the love and the connection was always there. And so as everyone was saying, fast forward, then he brings this woman into my life, and you all know that rock star. She's sitting right there. And as she comes into my life right away, I'm like, shit. This is a piece of me coming back to me. This is a soul sister. This is someone I have this amazing energetic exchange with. And I have to just share a silly little story. I have this unique space I'm working through with my mom, and my mom sometimes doesn't recognize that space. So she'll call me randomly. She's Filipino, and so she has an accent that sounds close to being very like Hispanic and Latin, and she sings on my phone. She's like, I just called to say I love you. And there was a time in my life where I'd hear that and it would light me up. And there is a time in life where I hear that and it's like, I just don't want to hear that right now. And so there's a night where Isabel calls me and I don't answer. I'm in the middle of doing some things, I don't answer. And the next day I call her and I want to sing that to her on the phone, but I decide not to. I hang up the phone, I send her a text, and I said, hey, I was having a Stevie Wonder moment. I just called to say I love you. And I leave it at that. So come Monday, I'm going through my voicemails that I never check. And there's one from Isabel, and I check it. And the minute I hit play, these chills go through my body as she starts singing. I just called to say I love you. And in that moment, there was this healing energy that came into me and this reminder of who we are and how I have the choice to show up first class and heal that space with my mother. And so I think without even planning that, that's a great segue for what's to come. I want to thank you all because I think it's important to start with gratitude. I say that I have 4 pillars: authenticity, vulnerability, honesty, and just that one place of being transparent. Always being exactly who I am. And if you can handle it, awesome. If you can't, that's between you and your journey. And so I came into this space and I said to my best friend, my business partner, so many other things, Rory, I said, I'm not really feeling this, but I will do what I've done my whole life and I will put on whatever facade that room needs because I'm here to give to them this morning. I'll worry about myself later. It wasn't that well articulated, but that's where I was coming from. And I came in here and bam, I saw vulnerability. I saw authenticity. I saw that transparency. I saw this energy and I felt this in this space and I heard you all and I wrote down words as you all were talking, and with every word I wrote, the following speaker, now I'm gonna swear, would fucking use that word. And I'm like, shit, you guys, really? And I just want to say, as I heard your stories, they were beautiful, they were healing, they were moving, and you all were giving all this beautiful credit to these fathers, to these mothers, to these people around you. And this is where I'm just going to be so bold for just a moment and say, for a second, can you stop and credit yourself? And credit yourself. Because you know what I saw in that 63 days, and I wasn't even there? I saw a man reflecting that I am, that he is, onto this gentleman, and it reflected back. So yes, your father, he showed up and he played that role that he was supposed to play, and we have gratitude for that. But thank you for knowing who the hell you are, that you can reflect that and see that back in him, and it's beautiful. And I saw that across the room today. I don't know who told the Beauty and the Beast story, but as you were telling it, I thought to myself, well, wait a second. Please don't miss the point here, right? Because the beast had to love himself. And all you all are fucking beasts. You are loving yourself. And so the stories are important. They're important to tell because then we can meet people where they are at. And as we walk away, we just left a gift. And that gift is saying the story is good, read it, feel it, embody it, but then put that book on the shelf and recognize who you are apart from the story. You are the I am. You are the healing Christ that is in every space. And so I love it. And I get nervous. I'll just be honest. I get nervous when I hear people telling a story because my emotions go in. I feel the anger. I feel the sadness. I feel the joy. I feel the release. And I'm like, hey, tell the story and cling to it as long as you need to. But don't ever cling to it more than you're clinging to who the fuck you are. That's what's important. Because you know what? You say to honor the mother and honor the father. Funny, I'm actually a pastor, so I'm going to be speaking about that tomorrow in the way of prosperity. And the key to that particular commandment to me is whatever you have been given by your internal father and mother, your highest self, complete alignment, the I am, that is what you need to honor. So my mom, who showed up and played her role perfectly, I don't always understand it, but I know Creator Gina put it there for a reason. I'm like, bless you, woman, I honor you. And my father, who I put on this huge pedestal, trust me, I honored him every step of the way because I had him in that place. And there was never a need where I was like, gosh, I got to make daddy someone he's not. Because I had a great relationship from my story of who he was. But then when I got older, I recognized again, it was just a story. It was just a story. And I say to my parents, I say to all of you, you guys created this space, you've invited me into it. Thank you. Thank you. Remember who you are, love it, own it, read it, but don't let it steal anything from you. Don't let the story become you, because you are grander than that. I can't even put in a fucking book your all story. It doesn't work that way. So this event, right? Okay, so the event. Rory and I, ever since we were very young, and I'm going to try not to speak too much for him, we felt that energetic presence that told us we were different. Maybe we didn't recognize it one way or the other, and I've only known Rory for a short point this time around. But the point is, I knew from a very young age that there's something different about me. And for multiple reasons around, that thing got quieted. But I'll never blame it on anything else. I wasn't ready, so it had to stay quiet. And when I became ready, the opportunities show up. When you're ready to manifest something, it's right there, moment by moment, it's being manifested. So 2022, really fast version here, something hit me. And it was, Gina, where have you put yourself? What did you do with yourself? And so as I began my upward trajectory to reclaiming who I am, to looking in that mirror and seeing the Creator and all of her awesomeness and all of her glory and really embracing the Phoenix I am, I needed to rise up. And along the way, teachers, people, modalities came into my life. And one of the greatest things that happened was through some connections, I stepped into some plant medicine ceremonies. And they were absolutely beautiful. And like every situation, they taught me what doesn't resonate with me, and they taught me what does resonate with me. But in my experience with these modalities, one of the greatest things that I learned is I am the modality. I am the vehicle to myself. It is me. It is my highest self, the I am, that is moving in me, that's bringing me up, that's navigating these waters, that is returning me to who I am. And so why do we need the plant medicine, right? Why do we need this? Because let's just say, it's like going to the gym, okay? It's like going to the gym. Life is a workout, and you go in there and you do these things, and every now and then you need something to help get you to that next level. And so if you've done the work, because we don't do this stuff blindly. We don't say, hey, come one, come all. Let's go tackle some trauma today, okay? But we say this. You've done the work. You recognize who you are. There's still a little bit of fog on that window. There's still a little bit of something that needs some Windexing. Then guess what? Y'all are the ones that brought us here today. Let us walk alongside of you. We can't do anything for you. I can show you a door that's beautiful. You have to choose to walk through it. I can present you this sacred modality and say, you know what? You've done the work. You see it. You're prepared for it. There's a reason you brought us here today. So let's lock arms and explore this together. Let's lock arms and see, could this be the thing that takes you to the next level? Is this the vehicle you're looking for? And maybe right now you're like, this all sounds good, but no, that's not for me. That's awesome. Honor that. Follow that. But for those of you on the spiritual journey, on the spiritual mountain climb, who say to myself, you know what? I'm ready. I have some intentions. I have some things that I really want to embark on. I'm ready to lock arms with spirit. I'm ready to meet my highest self and move forward. I'm ready to release the story that I keep carrying around on my back. Well, then come on. It's a safe space. There is no judgment. There's no bias. There's lots of love. There's lots of love. There's lots of me saying, I honor you. There's lots of me saying, can I have permission to come close to you? Do I have permission to hear your story? Do I have permission to hold you and meet you right where you're at? And if you say yes, then come on, because that's what this event is all about. We're going out to Milo Farm. We're going to share a space. We're going to commune with one another. We're going to have a beautiful journey together. And upon completion of that journey, where do we go from there? Well, y'all tell me. You all tell me. Because this isn't a one and done. This is saying, hey, this is a beautiful doorway. And anyone who is ready and wanting to come walk through it, then we are here to walk with you through it. And so thank you all. Thank you for reminding me of so many beautiful things. Thank you for being vulnerable and honest and transparent and authentic with me. I promise we will be the same for you if it's the time. If it's the time.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So we got a limit of 10 people, and I think we're about halfway. I think we got about 5 people signed up. So reach out if you want to learn more about this plant medicine journey retreat. If you just have questions, if you want to hear testimony, obviously James, Rory, Gina, and myself, I have a testimony. I went to do a ceremony with them, and it was my first time exploring anything like this. But I did it, was it last month? No, it was when we launched the AYPN in April. I spoke on it a little bit there. I wasn't prepared to. But man, I tell you, just the unlayering, and it's still happening, and it's been over a month. But what came forth for me during that journey, like she said, was just, it just went way deeper than what my earthly conscious, the way I am here today, was able to explore. I spoke on how I rebirthed my kids. So watch that. It was April's event, and he's still taking me through that rebirth. And then right after that, I spoke at an event called Safe in His Arms. And I thought I knew what I was going to say, but after doing that ceremony, God was just working real hot and heavy, and he started just telling me, you know, I allowed you to experience the rebirthing of your children with that experience, and he was happy I went on that gratitude trail and acknowledgement and everything. But what he showed me was that while I was rebirthing them, he was rebirthing me. And that's where the rebirth really was, or, you know, another part of it. Again, I've just been unlayering so much. I would love to share my testimony with anybody who's interested. So reach out, but please reach out if you have any questions. We shared a flyer. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and thank you all for being here today in person and virtually. Our next event is in August for our speaker series. But again, next month we are collaborating with Unity Southeast, Reverend Elisa, and we'll be hosting a family event July 31st at Unity Southeast. So thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day.